Good morning, everyone. We'll get ourselves started here. We've got a great panel to talk about a very important topic, and we want to make sure we allow for the full complement of time for that panel discussion. Certainly want to thank Lindsey, Pollak, and all the members of the panel who will be introduced here shortly. I don't know if our mission statement will be up there in a second. This topic ties directly into the exact verbiage in the mission statement that many of you helped fund, and that is to make sure that we're attracting and retaining talent here. HYPE is the organization that was formed 10 years ago. Julie Daly-Meehan has led our effort in that arena since its inception. Adam McLaughlin of Webster Bank, who is our current chair, is on the panel today. And I would say that our emphasis is a little different in terms of the order of the verbs. We're focusing primarily, first and foremost, on retaining the young talent we have here, and then creating the environment and the jobs, working with all of you to ensure that we attract additional talent to this pipeline. I want to thank the Hartford for being the event sponsor this morning. Certainly want to acknowledge Dave Robinson and Cliff Leach, who spend a great deal of time with us in a number of our boards and committees, and thank the marketing and communications team and everyone at the Hartford who worked to make this program a reality. I want to thank the Connecticut Convention Center for hosting us this morning, and thank the Hartford Current and Fox 61 again for being our media sponsors. We have 4 new Hartford investors, and I think they're all represented here this morning, whom I'd like to introduce. The first is Crystal Bees out of Southington, which is an upscale entertainment venue opening soon in Southington. It will feature an interior with a restaurant, full-service bar, bowling lanes, bocce courts, private function rooms, and other amenities. And they will also feature family activities during the day and transform into a 21-plus destination at night. So a few of us might be able to get in there. It's available for corporate and private functions of any kind. And Lauren Zilka, Sales and Event Manager. Lauren, are you here this morning? You could stand and be recognized if you are. Our second new Hartford investor is Freeman Companies, LLC, here in Hartford. It's a professional consulting engineering firm. They specialize in owner's representation, civil engineering, permitting, land surveying, landscape architecture, and other important engineering services. And they have been involved in a number of projects here in Hartford and elsewhere in the governmental, education, commercial and institutional size markets. We're delighted to have them on, and Karen Vernon, who's the Chief Administrative Officer and Manager of Operations. Karen, are you here? Must be traffic. I'll get that fixed. Our third Hartford investor is Nutmeg Family Dentistry here in Hartford. Provides general dentistry with an emphasis on hygiene, restorative, and cosmetic services. The doctors and staff pride themselves on providing individualized attention and comfort. The practice has been at 750 Main Street, right next door to Travelers, for over 25 years, and dental services are available during the lunch hour or before work for your convenience. Polly Chase, who's a dentist and owner, and Melody Howes, office manager. You here, either one of you here? There we go. Ladies, thank you very much. And any dentist who can feature comfort's in a good place. And our fourth Hartford investor is Robbins Joya, based in Alexandria, Virginia. Who says we can't recruit? For over 35 years, Robbins Joya's skilled and knowledgeable professionals have used proven methodologies, time-tested tools, and independent perspectives to help customers in government and clients in industry. The RG team implements innovative, customized solutions to help customers and clients achieve their mission-critical business goals. And Sandra Sears, who's the director of the financial services team, is here to represent them. Robbins Joya. Thank you very much. And I'm delighted that we're also able to recognize this morning a new strategic partner. We've about roughly 115 to 120 strategic partners as we go through the renewal process here. These organizations, companies, firms are critical not only to our financial well-being, but more importantly to providing intellectual capital to drive a number of our initiatives. And our new strategic partner this morning is CGI, based in Montreal, and that makes Alexandria look like a day at the beach because we're doing international recruiting here. They're the 5th largest independent information technology and business process services firm in the world. They employ approximately 68,000 professionals who serve thousands of global clients from offices and delivery centers across the Americas, Europe, and the Asia Pacific. They leverage a comprehensive portfolio of services that include high-end business and IT consulting, systems integration, application development and maintenance, and infrastructure management, as well as a wide range of proprietary solutions. We're delighted to have CGI come aboard as a strategic partner, and representing them this morning are Scott Berghoff, the Vice President of the Hartford Metro and U.S. Commercial Healthcare Sector, and Tim Heavey, Vice President. Gentlemen, are you here? There we go. Stand up. Please be recognized. Thank you very much. And having been in Montreal recently and listening to the mayor there, get the Expos back. That's what he's after. Just before we get into the substance of the program, there are 2 or 3 things that I wanted to make sure we recognized for everybody. In part in this first one, you'll see a slide up there called Stop the Bleed, the Hartford Consensus. And we are all Paris today, and as we have been, we were all Boston 2 years ago. This is an initiative that the President has developed over the last year to enhance survival in active shooter and intentional mass casualty events. And here in Hartford, Dr. Len Jacobs at Hartford Hospital has played a leadership role with the Obama administration in beginning to put forward the types of kits to enable people to prevent bleeding when there is a mass casualty of the type that we've all seen all too frequently here. This would be comparable to what we have in buildings for CPR and learning how to do Heimlich maneuvers and the like. Sort of this, how we help one another when a neighbor, a fellow worker, or a stranger has been a victim of this. I want to just recognize this because Doug Elliott of the Hartford is the chair of the Hartford Hospital Board. And as I said a minute ago, Len is the vice president of academic affairs at Hartford Hospital, is also a member of the Board of Regents of the American College of Surgeons. We had a meeting at Len's request with some of you in this room, or some of your colleagues, to determine how we best, as a community here in the city, can implement this initiative and strengthen our abilities to withstand the kinds of horrific things, as I said a minute ago, that have come all too common. So you'll hear more from us on that, but I do want to recognize that sometimes we overlook the intellectual and political leadership we have here in this state. The other organization that I just want to recognize is the Hartford Business Improvement District. Some of you know that Mike Zaleski, who's had led it from its inception, went over to Riverfront Recapture. Jordan Pollan is the new executive director, and they had their election for their 3-year terms of the Board of Commissioners the other night. Hank Hoffman from the Travelers, from the Hartford rather, is part of that group, and I just want to thank Jordan and everyone on that board that provides such invaluable services for what's one of our most important initiatives here in the city, the Hartford Business Improvement District. And then very quickly, a couple things on the education front. Many of you are aware, I hope you've become aware, of the Hartford Promise. This is an initiative that was launched about 4 years ago to provide scholarships to graduating seniors here in Hartford. Of over $4 million has been initially raised from the Travelers and Hartford Hospital being the 2 major private sector contributors. The goal is to raise an additional $4 million over the summer, so that we can have the corpus to provide this scholarship opportunity to graduating Hartford seniors well beyond the class that will graduate in May or June. They will be the first recipients of these $2,500 scholarships to 2-year schools and $5,000 scholarships to 4-year schools. So more to come on that. And then also Beth Navarre, as we partner with the school system, with the Bronin administration as they come as Luke and his team come into office, this notion of continuing to strengthen the public school systems overall. The scholarship element is one part, building working efforts together. There's a forum that Beth and her team are hosting on the Saturday the 5th of Build Family-Friendly Schools Together. It's an initiative that we've publicized, and if you have interest in it, you can go on their website. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention early on, I know Mike Freemuth is here this morning, just to put a plug in for the Excel Center and the USA Gymnastics, which will be coming back. I think this is the 3rd time that they will be holding their championships here in Hartford. They enjoyed and appreciated the support they've received from gymnastics clubs around this region, both in Western Mass and all the way down through the state of Connecticut, and have been especially appreciative of the financial support that many of you in this room have provided. We'll be back out promoting that again as we turn the corner on next year. But again, an important event that showcases Hartford, brings people into this region from around the country, and gives us an opportunity to demonstrate the great asset base that we have here. And then finally, I would be remiss to all of you UConn alums if I didn't mention tomorrow at Rentschler Field, Houston, if they win, bowl eligible. Go Huskies. So with that, it's now my pleasure to introduce the moderator of the of the panel, and that's Lindsey Pollak, who's a millennial workplace expert and a New York Times best-selling author. Those of you who were here last year, we were over at Infinity Hall last year with a similar focus on talent. She led that discussion, and we're delighted that she's back again today. So please welcome Lindsey Pollak, who will introduce the other members of the panel. Lindsey?
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I am so delighted to be here for the second year in a row, as Oz said, moderating this Metro Hartford Alliance Rising Star Breakfast, and it's so nice to see so many of you here today. As you heard, I'm going to start with a little bit of brand new research that I worked on with the Hartford, who I've been partnering with for 3 years to talk about the next generation in the workplace. And you are the very first people in the world to hear this research. It was released this morning, so you heard it here first. Feel free to tweet and Instagram and share this. We're going to talk about the Hartford's 3rd annual Millennial Leadership Survey. So I talk a lot about millennials, and it's an issue, of course, very important to the Hartford and to everyone's business. We wanted to share some results that are specific to the Northeast region, but also to all businesses across all industries. And the reason that this is so important right now is many of you may have seen the results of the recent workforce study in May of this year. It was found that millennials are now officially the largest generation in the US workplace overall. By the year 2020, less than 5 years away, millennials are projected to be 50% of the US workforce, and by 2025, less than 10 years away, millennials will be 75% of the US workplace. Now, this may be different at all of your organizations, but there is no doubt that we have reached the tipping point with this generation stepping up into leadership roles. So with the Hartford, we wanted to look and see, what does this generation want? What kind of leaders will they be? And here's some of the new findings that came out this morning. We found that 80% of millennials say that they already feel like leaders today. We asked, do you see yourself becoming a leader in the next 5 years? 69% said that they did. I think some of that is students who maybe are in leadership roles but feel that once they enter the workforce, they may not quite be in leadership roles. Or the other interpretation of the data is millennials are a very confident generation. Maybe they see themselves as retiring over the next 5 years. Interestingly, we found that these results were slightly lower in the Northeast region, that only 74%, just a slightly small dip, 74% of millennials in the Northeast region felt like leaders today, and 61% see them as leaders in the future. Now let's look at where this generation wants to lead industry-wise, and I think there's some good news here for the state of Connecticut and also some challenges that we can overcome. Probably not surprisingly, 40% of millennials say that they would like to work in the fields of arts and entertainment. And coming in second, 36%, again, probably not surprising, said that they wanted to work in the field of technology. For the state of Connecticut, let's look at some of the leading industries here. The good news, some of the leading industries, education ranked high on the list, healthcare ranked high on the list, government ranked high on the list. Let's look at the maybe less good news. Real estate was sort of in the middle. Manufacturing and insurance were unfortunately lower on the list. Now, I find this personally funny because I am a consultant with the Hartford. I am a Generation Xer. I work in the field of insurance. My younger sister, who is a millennial, lives in Hollywood and is trying to make it in the arts and entertainment world. So the Pollak family is right on the spectrum here. Regionally, the results are a little bit better for insurance in particular. 8% In the Northeast region, 8% of millennials say that they'd like to work in insurance, and we were also higher in real estate and financial services. So again, not surprising numbers that technology is popular, arts and entertainment is popular, but we wanted to get some insight into what some of the fields that ranked lower could do to attract more millennials. So let's look at those results. I think this is a little bit instructive for us. We asked millennials, what could insurance or manufacturing do to close this leadership gap? What would make you want to work in these fields? The number one answer was, show me a diversity of career opportunities. 46% said, I want to know that I would have options in those industries. Second, not surprisingly, competitive salaries, but I think interesting that diversity of experience actually ranked higher than money. Third was flexibility, work-life balance, certainly very important to this generation. And number four was competitive benefits. Things like health insurance, disability insurance, life insurance are still very important to this generation. So let's dive a little bit into these top answers and maybe give some insight and ideas of what we can do to attract young people to our state and to various industries. The first is this idea of a diversity of experience. One of the things you read a lot about millennials is that they have the FOMO factor, the fear of missing out. This is a generation that has grown up with the internet, with the world at their fingertips. So of course they want to try a lot of different things. A lot of times millennials get criticized for being job hoppers, but I prefer to see them as experience hoppers. They want to try a lot in their careers. They've been exposed to a lot. So millennials like rotational programs. They like mobility within organizations. They like to have training and development that allows them to build a variety of skills. This also means flexibility in their work and the way that they work in their jobs. So speaking of flexibility, this is a generation that has grown up with the technology to be able to work from home, to be able to work from anywhere, to be able to telecommute. This is also a generation who saw their parents struggle with work-life balance issues, particularly as children of baby boomer women, who were often the first generation of women to be in the workforce and also raising children. So this topic cannot be overstated. And I remember in my career, in my very first job in Stamford, Connecticut, it didn't occur to me that I would have balance as someone who wasn't married or didn't have kids. But we're hearing millennials say from day one of their first job, I want the flexibility to mix my life with the work that I do. And in our leadership study last year, we asked millennials, if you were in charge of the workplace today, if you ran the show, what is the first thing you would change about work? And the number one answer was work-life balance. So one of the things I say frequently about millennials is I think they want what we all want. Everybody wants work-life balance. Everyone wants some kind of integration. But millennials are going to ask for it earlier in their careers than any of us did. And they're willing to leave employers that don't provide the kinds of situations that they're looking for. Flexibility is another area where, of course, all generations are interested in it, whether there are elder care issues or health issues, or if you just want to take time to run a marathon or work in your community. So sometimes when we appeal to the desires of millennials, we're certainly appealing to all other employees as well. And we'll delve into that topic in detail in our panel. An area that was a little bit lower on millennials' desire list in this year's survey was training and development. This is one where I'm going to take the liberty to tell millennials that they should want it more than they do, because when I speak to employers, the complaint about millennials is some of them maybe don't have the etiquette skills or the professionalism or the communication skills that we need this generation to have if they're going to be such a large part of the workplace. So in the 2015 Millennial Leadership Survey, when millennials did talk about training, we asked them, what kind of training do you most want an employer to provide you? And not surprising, given the amount of millennials who see themselves as leaders, 60% of millennials said the top training that I want is training in how to be a leader. So train your millennials in leadership. Second top answer was technical skills. The third was financial. And the bottom of the list was oral and written communication skills. Unfortunately, I hear employers saying that that is what they think millennials need most. So I think to interpret these results, and our panelists will give more insight, we need to think about what millennials want, but also what millennials need to become the leaders that we want them to be. Finally, from our results, millennials want traditional benefits. You read a lot about foosball tables and nap rooms and free snacks, and all of that is great, and I'm sure all of us would be delighted to take a nap at work if that were offered to us. But there was a great article in the Wall Street Journal, and the title of it was, "Enough with the Ping Pong Tables." That's nice, but that's not what millennials want. The average millennial has $28,000 in student loan debt. So protecting their income, protecting their ability to work, their finances is very important to this generation. Health benefits, life insurance, disability are still very important to this generation. So that's a quick overview of the Hartford's 3rd annual Millennial Leadership Survey results released this morning. We're now going to ask an esteemed panel of local experts and business people about their experience with millennials and generational change in their workplace. But to leave you with a couple of takeaways, what do you do about millennials in your organization? Talk to them. Engage with them. They are your best recruiters and resource for attracting more young talent. Foster leadership by coaching, mentoring, and certainly training in what they want and need. Consider their expectations about flexibility, even on day one of a junior person's career, and of course, protect their leadership potential with benefits. So now I would like to transition into our panel and invite a panel of local experts to talk about their experience with this topic. Please welcome our panelists this morning. Thank you. So the trends and survey that I mentioned will be the basis of our discussion. Before we get into these hard-hitting questions, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Catherine.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Catherine Smith. I'm the Commissioner of Economic and Community Development. Clearly not a millennial. And a very proud baby boomer. We thought we ran the world, and I guess we're wrong, in the future at least. You know, I have been working for the governor for the last 4 years, but before that I had a career in both at Aetna and ING in the insurance industry with a variety of careers of different jobs and many different responsibilities along the way. So I'm delighted to be with you today, and thank you, Lindsey, for leading us.
Morning, everyone. Adam McLaughlin, Senior Vice President at Webster Bank in our Commercial Middle Market Group, and I'm also the Chair of HYPE, Hartford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs.
Good morning. My name is Marty Gervasi. I lead human resources at the Hartford. I've been with the Hartford 5 years, and prior to that spent 20 years with GE, mostly all in human resources. And maybe to lend a little more credibility to my place up here, have 3 millennials myself, 21, 22, and 23-year-olds, all trying to find, do the work and graduate from school. And then I'll also throw in, since some of my friends are here from the University of St. Joseph, outside of work, I'm on the Board of Trustees at the University of St. Joseph.
Good morning. My name is Dave Marcoux. I'm one of the co-owners of the Hartford Denim Company. We're a local manufacturer of denim, leather, and canvas goods in the Parkville neighborhood of Hartford.
He's the cool one.
He's the legit one.
I think you're all cool. So let's get started. The Hartford's Millennial Leadership Survey, as I mentioned, found that young people feel like leaders and want to continue to lead. So we can't talk about young leaders in Hartford without talking about HYPE, Hartford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs. So Adam, as the president of HYPE, I want to start with you. You were a HYPE member first. Any advice to other young people about making the move into leadership? What would you tell young professionals about stepping up?
Sure. Thanks, Lindsey. So in terms of stepping up, what we kind of tell our members is we look around the room right now. We've got 200 business people in the room. This is a fantastic opportunity for our members to come out here and work with our partnership at the Alliance and just get to know each other, get to know the senior leaders in your organization, within the community, and trying to get that exposure out there. It's something that we find, we find a lot of young professionals that are a little bit more timid, they're a little bit more nervous and stay in their cubicles or their offices, and we try and say, hey, raise your hand, get out there. From an internal perspective, we think it's important to volunteer for special projects, take on a task, get yourself that exposure to both from an internal perspective and again, inside the community. At Hype, we've got 4,300 members. We put on 70 events throughout the year. So we're an enormous organization at this point, and we have a lot of businesses that are trying to engage us in terms of, hey, how can we get our members more involved? There's a need in the business community, a want in the business community to get our members involved. And it needs to be reciprocated from our members to say, hey, here's your opportunity. We encourage them to go out in the marketplace, go out in the community and be engaged in the life. We give them opportunities for both personal growth and professional development, as well as try and empower them and equip them to be ambassadors for the region, because they're our biggest advocates here.
Terrific. So you're the P of Hype, the professional. We also have the E of Hype, the entrepreneur represented, Dave. You have started and led a business. Can you weigh in from your perspective on what millennials can do to build their leadership skills?
Sure. As a millennial, I guess, or as a leader, it's always important to stay focused on the goals of the organization and of your personal, and to sort of never give up, even though when things may seem extremely challenging or that it's not going to work out. We've been in business for about 5 years now, and we're just starting to turn the corner and really become successful. So it's about persistence and patience, I think.
Terrific. So let's talk about attraction and retention of talent. I work with companies across a wide variety of industries, and some I think are doing better at this than others. So let's dive into Connecticut. And Catherine, I'll turn to you. As we found in the survey, some of the industries that drive the Connecticut economy are struggling to attract and retain young people. So what is the state doing to support those companies in that attraction and retention?
Sure. We have, as a state, taken a look at, we did some analytics to look at what are the most promising industries here in the state that we think can be leaders, not just today, but in the future, and what are some of the emerging areas that might have the greatest opportunity for growth here in the state, building upon the strengths of the state, our university system, and some of the other great assets we have here. And we've identified really 5 critical areas. And some of those are on the lower end of the list. Insurance and financial services is sort of mid to low, but is actually very exciting in certain areas like venture capital and financial services, hedge funds, and lots of areas where there's a tremendous amount of growth. And having been through an insurance company, while I think when people hear the word insurance, they may not recognize the value, there is enormous potential because insurance companies, particularly the ones here in Connecticut, are really about talent development. They are incredibly strong at building talent within their ranks. Manufacturing is on our list. That is also a low bar for many people. They feel like, wow, I don't know if I want to work in a greasy place. Manufacturing is completely different. It is truly technology, and if people want a career in technology, which was number 2 on your list, it's really worth looking at manufacturing because it is now driven by technology. We also have on the list green technologies. That is a huge area where many millennials and all of us really want to see a greener planet, and we have in this state, in fact, I'm going next to a fuel cell company that's in a mode of expansion right now. So there is a lot of opportunity, and what we're trying to do is make sure that the companies that are in the state have access to talent. So you've seen the governor make big investments in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math at UConn. A number of our technical schools, our community colleges, as well as, of course, the private sector is making tremendous advances in these areas as well. If we have a pipeline of great talent, we're going to have those people be able to fill the roles in these sectors that I just mentioned.
Thank you. And it's always struck me that some of this is a PR issue, that maybe people don't realize that there are marketing jobs or technology jobs within an insurance company, or as you said, manufacturing. So some of it is just getting the information out of what these industries offer. So in our survey, millennials, of course, gave advice, particularly to insurers, about what to do to attract their fellow millennials. They said to promote a variety of jobs, competitive salary and benefits, leadership training. So Marty from the Hartford, can you talk about how the company is following this advice and engaging young leaders, and what strategies would you recommend to other companies in the room?
Yeah, thanks, Lindsey. So you saw the numbers, right? Where 4% would consider a career in insurance. That's not a great number for us. So the first thing really is, there is a lot about this, which is PR and helping people really understand what opportunities are available in insurance companies like the Hartford. So when we, if you looked at the list of what Lindsey had up there, of what people want to do and things that are cool and attractive, it includes things like technology. It includes things like helping people when they're in their greatest time of need. It includes things like working in big data and analytics. And we have career opportunities that go across all of those desires. So there is this first step of helping educate people about what we do. We're not out just selling insurance policies. There's a whole lot more to what we do. So both for ourselves and how we brand the Hartford, but also collaborating with others in the industry to really help educate about what careers really are available in insurance is step one for us from an attraction standpoint. Step two for us, I think, both for attraction and retention, the other thing you heard was people do want to work at a place where the work environment is good, the benefits are good. So really talking about that and helping people understand what we do have available for people, those traditional benefits like 401ks and healthcare, but also going beyond that with things like wellness programs and fitness and the opportunity to serve in your community and flexibility. Those are all things that we really try to highlight. And frankly, when we can actually get people in the door at the Hartford, we're more than halfway there because we get the opportunity for them to engage with colleagues, to see what a great working environment we have. For those of you that work here in Hartford and you've driven past Asylum Street and on Asylum Hill, and you see the lights have been on in the tower a lot, weekends, nights, etc., for many months. And that's because we have been completely renovating our campus here in Hartford, investing a lot in technology and investing in new work, just a whole new work environment for folks that's got great technology platform, open collaborative workspace, flexibility, all those things that once people come in, they say, wow, I didn't expect this. So that's a big piece for us as well, continuing to invest in our work environment and all the benefits. And then last, I say, from, again, both a retention and attraction standpoint, giving people opportunities for leadership. You talked about take the project, do something outside of your prime zone of work, and we give employees a lot of opportunities to do that at the Hartford. One way we do it is through our employee resource groups. We have 8 employee resource groups at the Hartford. We heavily encourage people to be part of those. They branch everything from the Professional Women's Network to the Hispanic Leadership Network. And then we have our own version of HYPE, YoPros, our Young Professionals Network. And those are great opportunities for people to be engaged and get those leadership opportunities.
So just for those of you following at home, we've got HYPE, YoPros, and FOMO. So we've got our millennial acronyms today. So Marty, I want to ask you a question that I get asked whenever I advocate for training millennials. And I'd love to hear from a show of hands if any of you are struggling with this. A lot of people say, well, it's great that millennials want training and we're happy to provide it, but millennials leave. Anyone struggling with this? So how do you provide training to a generation that might walk out the door? My perspective is it's better to have a highly engaged workforce and a trained workforce, and if they leave, they leave, but it's better to provide that training rather than having unproductive, disengaged employees. But how do you deal with the retention issue?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that you can't put your head in the sand on this. You can't just say we're not going to do it. We invest a lot in training at the Hartford, and we do it right from internship programs where we can bring in talent from campuses around the country, give them exposure to the industry, give them exposure to our company. And then for us as well, it's a great way to sort of get a test run of them as employees and then bring them in and invest in them. So we put that piece in first to know that it's a good investment for us from an employment perspective. And we have lots of different varieties of training that we do. We do everything from 3-year entry-level rotational programs to direct entry hires for things like actuarial and underwriting. We provide for over 300 of our employees something we call iLead, which is an opportunity for our early career professionals to come in a couple times a year for networking and leadership exposure and training. And these are all big investments. There's no doubt about that. And there is certainly the issue with people that may decide to leave. So it's really incumbent upon us to really do 2 things. One is understand at that point when people are most vulnerable to leave, which is typically in that 3 to 5 year out of college time frame, right? You see a lot of heads shaking. making sure that, and I say this to employees all the time, especially our new hires, when you get to that point, before you decide to leave, talk to us. Because the thing you think you're going to be leaving for, we may be able to provide. So if you think I want to leave Hartford and go to work in Boston, talk to us. We have an office in Boston. If you think you want to leave because you want more flexibility and you want to work remotely, talk to us. 35% of the Hartford's employees work remotely from their homes. So we've got to, it's incumbent upon us to do what we can to keep people hooked in and retained. But the flip side is reality, we will still lose people. So the other thing we're working hard to do is build our alumni program. I do think there's real value in that, having an alumni program, staying in touch with people who leave, because as Lindsey said, people are looking to build experiences, and they may find an experience with you early in their career and maybe want to go to try something different. But then guess what? That's probably going to make them a better employer, better employee, if you can then loop them back in after they've had an opportunity outside your company. So those are some suggestions of things we're doing.
Great, and just to reiterate the alumni point, I was reading an article about the top workplace trends in 2016, and boomeranging, going back to a company that you've worked for in the past, was one of the top trends, so I think that's right on point. Adam, I want to put the same question to you. Can you talk a little bit from your perspective about leadership training and retention?
Yeah, I think I agree with both Lindsey, you and Marty here in terms of I'm a believer in you need to invest in the young professionals and in anybody within your workplace. I think I read a study that, you mentioned job hoppers in the survey. Millennials are averaging, they might take 15 jobs throughout the career. The nature of having somebody sit at a shop or in an office for doing the same job for the next 30 years, it's not going to happen anymore. It's just the nature of the beast. It's a changing dynamic. So, and I don't think it's necessarily exclusive to young professionals. I think every employee wants to feel valued, wants to feel, that they're important to the company. And so that reinvestment into your employee base is important. And yes, you're going to run the risk that they might leave, and it's unfortunate. But if you don't give them that opportunity, that training, that investment, or provide them that value, it's a certainty that they're going to leave and go find something what they consider better. So I encourage employers, yes, to continually invest in your employees. I think that's the most important retention thing that you can do. Give them those opportunities to maybe explore other things within the company, and don't just necessarily rest on your laurels, if you will, to say, okay, he's doing a really good job or she's doing a great job here and she's going to be happy because we're paying her nice. Employees, we want more. That's the bottom line.
Lindsey, can I jump in here? 'Cause,
Please.
in my career, I had this opportunity. I mean, just the last 10 years before I came to work for the state, I worked at ING. I had 8 jobs in 10 years, really different jobs. And it makes a huge difference to your willingness to stay with a company when you know you're being rotated around, where you're getting new experiences. So that on-the-job experience really is training. And I think we sometimes think of training as you got to sit in a room and do, quizzes after the meeting and whatnot. No, training can also be really experiential, and I think actually that's the deepest and most long-lasting training that employees can get.
Terrific. And Adam, I just want to ask a follow-up too. Sure. I'd love for you to reflect on this disconnect between millennials saying they want leadership training, but they don't feel they need communications training. I saw a lot of nodding heads on millennials needing communications training. So how do you feel about that disconnect? As a senior leader, should you be helping employees learn how to better communicate?
It's interesting. I'm like you. I'm a Generation Y-er, so I'm not necessarily in the millennial camp. But we all grew up. I'm on social media. Every Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it, we're doing it, and it's a great avenue for folks to stay connected. You've expanded our network far more than what we would have known 20 years ago, right? But the problem with that is, I think the art of face-to-face communication, or even just picking up the telephone and talking to people, is dwindling. So I'm a believer, in a sales role, I'm a believer in, hey, get out in front of somebody or pick up the phone and talk to somebody versus sending an email. That personal connection, reading body language, it goes so much further than what you can see in an email, things can get misconstrued. And, as a younger professional that, I do use all the social media, use electronic means to communicate, and you find yourself falling into the lull of, I don't have enough time to pick up the phone and do that. So the investment of communication, it does need to be reiterated, because we do just take it for granted, I believe. And I think as the younger generation continues to flow through, it's only going to get worse. I mean, the LOLs, where we find people talking shorter and using emojicons instead of having an actual conversation, right? So the more that we can kind of, that you don't want to necessarily say educate per se, because you don't want to slight anyone, but I think that constant refreshment is a needed thing.
Yeah, the Oxford English Dictionary, as some of you might have seen, came out this week with their word of the year. The word of the year this year, for the first time ever, is not actually a word. It's the crying, smiling, laughing, crying emoji. So that's certainly apropos. But that comes, to another piece of the research that we found. The Hartford does a lot of research on how millennials want to be communicated with about their benefits. And millennials told us, don't assume that I want to do everything by email or online. I do want people to talk to me. I do want face-to-face communication. So I think it's also a reminder that we can't assume that one generation only wants to communicate online or another generation only wants to communicate face-to-face. I think we all crave the different kind of communications, but need some education sometimes on how to do that. Let's turn now to the topic of work-life balance, which is something that everybody deals with in their lives. Catherine, I want to turn to you. Can Connecticut capture more young leaders by marketing itself as a place for work-life balance, for flexibility?
I actually think it's one of Connecticut's greatest strengths is that we have an incredible quality of life here. And if you look at, just the array of producing and production theaters, if you look at our museums, if you look at the downtowns of our smaller cities, you can find great places to live. You can find great places to bring up kids. You have a great educational system. There is a lot in Connecticut that makes us a very special place to live, but still be within very close proximity to some of the bigger urban areas that people want to be able to get to pretty easily. So it is actually a very big part of location, if you will, for why Connecticut is a great place for businesses and then, of course, for their employees as well. And it's something that we spend a lot of time in DECD thinking about, trying to make sure that the communities are vibrant. Here in Hartford is a great example. We mentioned Mike Freemuth, Oz did earlier. He runs the Capital Region Development Authority. Together, the Capital Regional Development Authority and some developers here, with some help from the Department of Housing, have added 1,000 new units in downtown Hartford. These are mostly pretty small apartments that are built for students that might come with a UConn new campus downtown, St. Joe's new campus downtown. We're trying to get more people living in the city where they want to be anyway. A lot of younger people are flocking to the cities because they want to be in an environment where they don't have to have a car and they can walk to the theater or the movies or whatever it might be, out to dinner. So those are all important elements of things that we need to make sure we're keeping up with so that, again, young people really want to be in this community.
So we heard from Marty a little bit about flexibility in a large corporation. How many of you today are small business owners? Okay, so I'm a small business owner as well. Dave, you are one of us. Do you think small businesses can provide more work-life balance or less? I hear a lot of different opinions. I'd love you to weigh in on the work-life balance issue in a small business.
It's almost both. As an employer, there's a certain level of flexibility that we have to offer for our employees, and then thusly they need to offer to us, especially on the smaller scale, because with our business we're 5 people. I've got 2 partners and we've got 2 employees, and there's certain times when it's all hands on deck. We've got a huge order that we've got to get taken care of, and that means that everybody's going to be staying later, or we're going to be working 10, 12-hour days. But then there's other times when we're not so busy and the employees need some flex time. Somebody's got a doctor's appointment or there's a family thing, or, so we always try to provide that kind of flexibility. And then, based on the nature of our business, we're always doing different shows that can be a good opportunity to sort of get some of the employees out of the workshop and into the public, talking with other people and sort of engaging with the community. So, it can be tough both ways, but we try to provide as much balance as possible. Particularly for ourselves, I think as business owners, it's really hard because we're constantly thinking about what needs to be done next, what has to happen after that, what's going to happen in a month, 2 months, 5 years. And so it's always like taking a second to sort of sit down and breathe and be with your loved ones and like do a little bit of leisure. Trying to find that balance can be difficult.
Wait, so we as business owners are supposed to have balance too?
It's
You
very
heard it here
important.
first. Something I've heard you say that I really like is that employers need to flex for employees, but employees also need to flex for employers. Marty or Adam, from a larger company perspective, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same is true for a big company, although we certainly have more resources to spread around when there's times of need. And probably the best example at a large company like the Hartford or other insurers is when there's a big event that with a lot of claims that happen, and our employees really then have to flex and be willing to serve our customers. And we find that for the most part, they're prepared to do that because probably the same for you. We've got, our employees know and what our goals are and what's most important to our customers, especially in their time of need or when there's something really important to deliver, and they're willing to do that for us. But I think you only get that when you're willing to give that flexibility, and it's a two-way street. And so that's something we think is really important. So flexibility is key for us, and it's something we can really sell as a differentiator. As a company, we have a really generous paid time off policy that allows people right out of the gates to come in as a new hire with a decent amount of time off. And that really does put us at a competitive advantage. So we can allow that flexibility to our employees, but at the same time, when we need them, they're there for us.
Thank you. Adam or Catherine?
Yeah, just to follow up on it, I think to reiterate my earlier point in terms of feeling valued, I think if you're as an employee feel valued by your employer, but you are given that flexibility, when the time comes, you're more willing to step up to the plate and do whatever is necessary to get the job done because you're engaged, you're involved, you have that passion to make sure it's going to happen. So, from a bigger company, we also have the flexibility. Technology is amazing these days. You can just open up your laptop and it's like you're sitting in your office and nobody knows any one way or the other. But so having that flexibility to do that as a working parent myself, sometimes I might need to run home and take care of my kids or see my kids, which is a fantastic thing, right? But there's also times where I'm willing to put the kids to bed and jump back onto the computer at 8:30 at night and work for the next 3 hours because you know what? It's important to me to get that job done because I know how much my business cares for me.
One other point I'd raise, and it's sort of been alluded to here, is the need for employees to feel like they're giving something to their community, and that is a big part of flexibility. And I remember at ING when we surveyed our employees, we found that was right up there next to pay as being one of the most important things for them. So giving people the time to go out and support the organizations in the community they want to is extremely important and can really be a driver of employee engagement and employee satisfaction. So, and I think particularly in this generation, we've seen here in Hartford, for example, in the last couple of years, the starting up of social benefit companies. This is a whole new category of companies that are local entrepreneurs who want to do something that's not just entrepreneurial, but something that's going to be good for the environment or for the community in one way or another. So I think it's a great example and something that's really we're seeing in these younger generations is really that desire to give something back to the community. So make it available to people. It will really help.
So let's dive into that community issue. Yeah. In the survey, we found that millennials want to work for companies that are active in their communities. And I think that's another thread that millennials have in common with all generations, wanting to give back, wanting to find meaning in their work. Marty, I know through my partnership with the Hartford that the company is, of course, very involved, particularly in the Hartford community. Does that, tell us a little bit about that and also how that plays a role in retaining leaders?
Yeah, there's no doubt that that's a key for us from an engagement standpoint. Our employees really appreciate the opportunity to get out in the community, and whether it's working with Food Share, as you see up on the screen right now, or our partnerships with the Boys and Girls Club, or United Way, or the Village for Families. Those are all partners that we have at the Hartford that we do a lot of work with. It is very meaningful. I know, I'll speak for myself as I'm an employee too, and the fact that I have time to devote to the University of St. Joseph for my volunteer work, that's important to me, and I appreciate that my employer gives me the time to do that. All our employees do. So we provide at least for all of our employees the opportunity for 8 hours of work time a year to go out and volunteer in the community. We do a big day of service every year in September to really get thousands of our employees out. We think it's really critical. And I would also say it's also an opportunity to fuse something that's really important with employees, actually two things that are really important for employees. One is their engagement, and the second is leadership. community events and the partnerships that we have do provide platforms for employees to get a leadership opportunity off the side of what they do every day. So I do think it's a real opportunity for employers to kind of get a twofer when you think about giving back to the community.
Great. And Dave, I know that involvement in the community is very important to your business. You chose to start your business in the community where you grew up. Can you talk about this from your perspective?
Sure. As we started the business, it really started as a hobby and three friends kind of in a garage just making things because we wanted to and really enjoyed seeing the productivity that we could do. But as we started making things, we realized that there was a much greater, much bigger picture here, that not really many things were made in this country anymore. And so that became, an immediate focus that we had a greater responsibility than just making pants and belts and bags and things like that, but also to sort of bring back a community that was lost of manufacturing. And one way that we like to foster that sort of community is we've been hosting markets. At one point we were doing it on a monthly basis. Now it's a little bit more sporadic, but we invite local makers, artists, performers to sort of gather on a Monday night and then sell their wares and connect with the local community that way. There was also a point in time when I was on the local NRZ board, which is a revitalization project in the Parkville neighborhood. It's just, you're only as strong as the community that you're in. So, it's really important to sort of give back to that. To get the support that you need, you have to offer that same support.
Adam?
Yeah, I think just to add that, from a height perspective, one of the things that we hear to our members the most, to Marty's point, is, they want to be involved in the community life, and sometimes they don't feel like they have that flexibility to go out there and go to serve on a not-for-profit board and get out for a lunch meeting from 12 to 2. So we need to have that reciprocal thing. I think from our standpoint, our height members can be the biggest retention tool for a lot of your companies out here. We're out there wanting to be part of the community and wanting to do more and make Connecticut and the greater Hartford region a better place. Here's your opportunity to have these folks go out there in the community, become more engaged, get more involved, try and attract more people to the area, make this area a better place, but they are yearning for that flexibility to be able to do such things.
Millennials are the best recruitment tool we have for attracting other millennials. Where are recruiters in the room? Height members, would you raise your hands? Height members in the room? Terrific. Terrific. So Catherine, I'd love to give you the final word. Your title includes community and economic development.
Right.
Can you talk about how tied they are together within Connecticut?
Sure. This is really an important element, and I think it was, the governor brought these pieces together. So on the community side within my department, we look at art and culture. We're supporting, those industries here, and they are, by the way, in and of themselves, enormous contributors to our economy in terms of jobs and economic development. But we also have historic preservation. We have, working on making sure we're doing transit-oriented development, which is extremely important for millennials, as well as making, again, getting rid of the car, making sure they can commute to work easily and quickly. And we really are looking at this holistically, because I think we understand well that companies are going to locate where they can get the best talent. If I go ask all the companies in Connecticut, which by the way I do on a regular basis, what's the most important reason that you're here? Location is very important, but really they're focused on talent. And so making sure that they can attract and retain the very best people is quite important. And I know from personal experience, and I think all of you do as well, when you're an employee looking at where you want to live and what company you want to work for, it is not just about the company and the people in the company, although that's very important. But it's the school system in which you can bring up your kids. It's access to these kinds of opportunities for volunteering, for art and culture, the things that you care about, great restaurants in the area, whatever it is, it's not just one dimension. And so I think our economic development plan for the state really reflects that. It looks at the community opportunities. We look at transportation, the cost of energy, education systems, trying to make sure that holistically this community in which we're all operating is the kind of place that we all want to live, that we want our children to be brought up in, and that we want our children's children to be brought up in. So it is extremely tied together. And again, I think we have an enormous opportunity. I'm a big believer in benchmarking. And a couple of years ago, not a couple of years ago, just last year, Forbes named Connecticut as the #3 state in the country for highest quality of life. And that is really a great strength upon which we need to continue to build. And I think this whole work-life balance is very much tied into that notion that you not only need the great companies that we have here, but you need that high quality of life and that real ability for people to want to be in this home base, if you will.
And I think that 200 people showed up for this breakfast to talk about the topic is a great testament to that. So thank you all for coming, and please join me in thanking our panelists this morning. Before I turn it over to Oz, I have some websites to share with you to plug all of our fabulous panelists. You can find more about the Hartford's Millennial Leadership Survey at thehartford.com/tomorrow. You can find more about HYPE on the Metro Hartford Alliance's website and a link to the HYPE Facebook page, and more about Dave's company and to buy a pair of the jeans that he is modeling today, hartforddenimcompany.com. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lindsey, very much. Thank you, Lindsey, very much, and thank you to the panel, Catherine, Adam, Marty, and Dave. And actually, Dave, I'm a little surprised you didn't get up and model. But thank you all for being here. The first comment in the survey was, millennials want to be leaders. I'm just delighted that Julie Daly Meehan allows me to say working at the Alliance. So don't worry about where the millennials are in leading. Thank Adam for his leadership. And I just do one quick transition here on HYPE. To our next Rising Star Breakfast, and that is that one of the areas of focus for HYPE has been on public policy and engaging more millennials on the issues at the city and state level and encouraging many of them to take a look at opportunities in their towns to run for office, to be appointed to important commissions, and indeed to look at running for public office at the state legislative level. We think this is a critical component of the future of this state, and on December 9th, our next Rising Star Breakfast, we're delighted that Governor Malloy will be with us again. I just want to put a couple things out in front of everyone. The governor's made it very clear that as we face some very daunting fiscal challenges, that he is interested not only in ideas from the legislature, but in soliciting ideas from the private sector. We submitted a letter to the governor in late October. It's on our website. We have an op-ed piece in the Business Journal on Monday to talk about this critical necessity of forming a very strong public-private partnership to ensure that the extraordinary assets that are in this room and elsewhere are put into the mix in trying to solve some of these problems, whether they be around the funding of the pension system, whether they be around the spending cap. This is an opportunity to engage more folks, and we're delighted that the governor's opened that door, and we're looking forward very much to having him here on December 9th. And on January 12th, just a transition to the city of Hartford, Luke Bronin will be here on a State of the City address. We've reached out. Bonnie Malley, who's our chair, I know Bonnie's here this morning, is chairing one of his transition committees. And this notion of engaging the private sector, we are all in this together. That fiscal challenge that we're facing at the state and city levels belongs to all of us. And solving that is critical to our ability to retaining and attracting jobs in the future and ensuring that the millennials that are here today and those who come in the future, whatever letter goes on that generation, maybe it'll be ZZ, Generation ZZ, that there are opportunities here for them as we go forward. So again, to Lindsey, thank you very much for moderating, to our panelists, to all the folks who work at HYPE and are members of HYPE. We're delighted to have you here. Tune in on Saturday to Pulse of the Region. I think you'll be, again, mesmerized by my voice on an important topic that we're working with in the Hartford Consortium. With that, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. We'll look forward to seeing you in December.
Great to see you. Yeah, that was.